Freedom fires, certainly at this point, you know, when you get those kinds of temperatures, thrust the urban areas into the media spotlight, all the pictures going around of kids jumping in swimming pools and people hitting the ice skating rinks. But the impact of the heat wave could have quite a serious effect on agricultural industries across the nation. Let's talk about how the farmers across Australia are faring with CEO of the Agricultural Management Company, Charlie Blomfield, joining us from our Brisbane studio. Charlie, great to have you on the program today. Thank you. And of course, farmers watch the weather all year round, closer than anyone. What parts of Australia, from your perspective, look to be mostly affected then?
Good morning, Brooke. Well, the heatwave's nearly done a full circle around Australia so far. It started in Queensland, Christmas, New Year's, and then moved across the centre and into Western Australia, and it's just moving into South Australia and Victoria now. The tropical lows in the north are sort of pushing it around Australia, and as this cyclone low pressure system moves through Northern Territory, it'll push it back up in Queensland again at the start of next week. So really, it's done a full circle around the country so far. And
so, therefore, what are the industries that have been feeling the impact of that heat wave, which is now, as you said, continuing down into the south? Who's really, you know, I can use the phrase, you know, feeling the heat, I suppose?
Yeah, for sure. The livestock industries, in particular in Queensland and New South Wales and Northern Territory, have had a very tough year in 2013. So the heat wave at the end of that season has just put additional pressure on the water supply, although these extreme weather events generally generate further weather events. So we're seeing at the moment some strong monsoonal action in Northern Australia, which is dissipating that. And at the moment, the heat in the southern parts of Australia isn't affecting too many of the crop producers, as they've already gone through harvest. So really, it's just affecting the outlook for planting moisture come after Easter.
I mean, we did have hot weather this time last year. Is it kind of similar? Was it similar timing? I'm trying to remember exactly when it was, but in terms of the impact of that, are we looking at something similar?
Yeah, I think that one of the important things to remember, it does get hot in Australia each summer. And last year, you know, the heat was quite beneficial for some producers. For example, the cotton industry, the dry, hot conditions were perfect for finishing off a crop, and we had near record national crop. But the difference was that they had irrigation water that year, so for this year the water stocks are looking lower, so producers are looking at whether or not they're going to plant again this next coming season.
So cotton would therefore be vulnerable? Who else?
Cotton is, yes. Livestock
because of that water issue, yeah.
Yeah, the livestock industry definitely needs a top-up. Natural water sources, and also the groundwater system needs to be recharged across most of northern and eastern Australia. And as we come into May and June, wheat and grain growers will be looking to plant crops, so we need to get rainfall before then for a soil moisture profile.
I mean, people do forget too, I mean, you've got large parts of Western Queensland and New South Wales in the second year of drought. Can I ask you about some of the drought subsidies that are out there? Because I see today that you've got the Agriculture Minister, Barnaby Joyce, saying he actually wants to increase drought funding to farmers. Now, we've been hearing since Christmas as a fairly consistent line from the government that they do not provide handouts to struggling industries. Should the agricultural sector be treated any differently?
Well, farmers are a resilient bunch, and the vast majority don't actually want the handouts as such. There's $420 million of funding there, and in the farm finance package there's some really important parts to that. A very beneficial program will be the social support scheme, where they'll increase access to support in regional and rural areas for depression and suicide and things like that. Then the second parts to it, with the concessional loans, essentially, you know, borrowing additional funding up to $1 million at 4.5%, which is a commercial rate at the moment, to pay down existing debt that you're having trouble servicing, is probably not the most financially prudent decision. And the farm debt mediation program at the moment, it really is a service that doesn't fix the underlying problem. By the time you get to farm debt mediation, a lot of the time options for fixing the problem become limited, and the debt and interest actually will accrue over that time. That could be 6 to 12 months in that process. So the underlying system is not fantastic, but there is a big pool of money there to help, and perhaps it could be more effectively used.
Right, yeah, because you're saying of $420 million, you only think one out of those three initiatives are actually any good. If you're advising that, if you got the chance to speak straight to the Prime Minister and the Agriculture Minister, what would you say, you know, in terms of support for the industry without providing the handouts to, in the government's own line, to, you know, not necessarily be saving people who can't save themselves or who haven't helped themselves?
Yeah, for sure. There's supporting individuals is great, and I think the social support is probably the most effective way to do that. But investment into the industry actually helps the sector as a whole more than individuals, and everyone will benefit from that. For example, investments into key infrastructure, trade, and also research and development is crucial for us ongoing, and that's been a declining trend in the last few years, so some extra support in those areas would be greatly required.
Charlie, can you bring people into the picture just a little bit more as well, and just tell us what you do at the Ag Management Company, because you're consulting in the area.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're essentially contract managers, so we manage farms and rural property for third-party owners. We also advise on some deals coming into Australia, so we helped the due diligence process for Terra Firma buying out the Packers' interest in Consolidated Pastoral, and did the food security investment strategy for the Qatar Investment Authority. So we work with people in developing a strategy to manage investments ongoing and deal with these things like heat and cold and flood and fire and get a consistent return over time.
And so when you're looking at the short-term issues against the long-term issues, so at the moment obviously we're talking short-term, we've got this heat wave, and I know this part of the year is very critical in terms of setting the tone for the whole year. But, you know, you've also got this report out from the Climate Council today with interim findings from a new heat wave report. They've projected the number of heat waves will increase significantly, the likelihood of heat waves lingering for longer and becoming more tense. How do you advise clients, and how are you acting on the longer-term picture? How do you form a view on that as well?
Yeah, look, we deal with fluctuations and volatility in our weather systems and our markets as well. So managing those and getting a consistent result is very important for us. For example, when we look to the year ahead, most of our operational planning is done before Christmas, and then come January we're just fine-tuning those plans based on weather events. So if we don't receive at least 50% of our rainfall by the end of January, so for Northern Australia in our summer rainfall, we might start scaling back operations, and any rainfall we receive after that will be a benefit to us, but it makes us more resilient for that year ahead and allows us to make some more important decisions down the track.
It is so great to speak to you, Charlie. Thank you very much. And a few very topical issues, and I'm sure we can get you back to talk a little bit more about, you know, drought subsidies. I think that's going to be one that continues. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brooke.
Thanks, Charlie Blomfield there from our Brisbane studio.